When you're scared of ending up alone in a nursing home, watch this at 3 a.m. You're standing in a hallway that smells like antiseptic and something floral trying to cover the antiseptic. The lights are a little too bright. The floors are a little too clean. And you're holding a paper bag, some fruit, maybe a book they probably won't read. And you're standing outside a door with a name on it. The name is someone you love. You go in, you smile, you ask how they're doing. They tell you about the food, about the nurse who comes in the morning, about the television program they watched yesterday. And you nod, and you hold their hand, and you stay for as long as you can before the guilt of having somewhere else to be starts pulling at you. And on the drive home, or maybe that night lying in the dark, a thought comes. Quietly, the way the worst thoughts always do. What if one day someone stands outside a door with my name on it? Not as a tragedy, not as a fear you can name out loud to anyone. Just as a question that sits down next to you and doesn't leave. If you've had that thought, even once, this is for you. Because here's the thing about that thought. It doesn't announce itself as a fear. It disguises itself as practicality. You start thinking about logistics. Who would handle the paperwork? What the costs look like? Whether you've saved enough. You turn it into a planning problem because planning problems have solutions. And this feeling underneath, doesn't. And if you push past the logistics, like if you sit with it long enough in the quiet, you find what's actually there. It's not the fear of dying, it's the fear of being alive and invisible at the same time. It's the fear of a life that was full of people who needed you, full of mornings where you had somewhere to be and someone waiting, shrinking down, getting smaller and smaller until it fits inside one room. One window, one chair. By that window where you sit and watch the afternoon light move across the floor and wonder if anyone is going to call today. That's the thing no one says out loud. We talk about nursing homes in terms of medical care, in terms of cost, in terms of what's best. We don't talk about what it feels like to imagine yourself there. The specific texture of that fear, the way it isn't really about the place at all. You're not afraid of the building, you're afraid of what the building means. You're afraid of becoming someone who waits. And the mind, once it grabs on to that image, does what minds do at 2 a.m., it runs. You start replaying things. Every choice you made, every relationship you let drift. You think about your kids and you love them, you genuinely love them. But you also find yourself doing this quiet, shameful calculation. Would they come? Not out of obligation. Actually come, would they want to be there? Or would they be there because they're good people who feel like they should? And the fact that you're not sure, that's the part that keeps you awake. Then there's this other layer, the one that's somehow worse. The thought that goes, I spent so much of my life being useful, taking care of things, being the one people called when something went wrong. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you built this, not consciously, but you built it. This belief that being needed is the same as being loved. That as long as people need you, you're safe. You matter, you exist in the lives of other people in a way that's solid, that's real. And a nursing home is the place where that ends. Not your life, your usefulness. And somehow the two have gotten so tangled up inside you that you can't tell where one ends and the other begins. If this is hitting somewhere close, stay with me. Subscribe if you want more of this. It helps more than you know. But more importantly, don't go anywhere yet. because this is where it starts to actually make sense. The spiral doesn't mean you're broken. It means you've been carrying something for a long time that you never had the right words for, and the first step isn't fixing it, it's just finally calling it by its real name. So let's call it by its real name. Your whole life you've known who you are because of what you do. Not in a shallow way, in a deeply human way. You are the parent who showed up, the person who kept things running, the one who remembered birthdays and fixed things that broke and sat up with people when they were sick. You built your sense of self out of your function in other people's lives. And that's not a character flaw. That's what love looks like in action. That's what it means to be someone who gives a damn. But here's what happens when that function starts to feel threatened. The brain doesn't separate I can no longer do the things I used to do from I no longer exist in a way that matters. Those two things feel identical because for so long they were identical. Being capable and being worthy were the same thing. Being useful and being loved were the same thing. And now, somewhere in the background of your life, a question is forming that you don't know how to answer. If I'm not the one taking care of things, who am I? That's not a logistics problem. That's an identity crisis dressed up in practical clothing. And then there's the other thing, the cultural thing, the thing that was handed to you before you were old enough to question it. You grew up believing you, or maybe you were just shown without anyone ever saying it directly, that family takes care of family. That the way a life is supposed to end is surrounded by the people who love you, in a home that smells familiar, with someone who knows your history, sitting close enough to touch. That's the promise. That's the image burned into you. And the world didn't keep that promise. Not because your family doesn't love you, but because the world got complicated in ways nobody planned for. Children moved to different cities for jobs that didn't exist in your hometown. Apartments got smaller. Lives got busier. The infrastructure of the multi-generational household quietly collapsed over the last 50 years, and nobody held a funeral for it, and nobody gave you permission to grieve it, so you're just left holding this expectation with nowhere to put it. And underneath the expectation is a feeling you're almost too ashamed to admit. Did I do something wrong? Did I not build my relationships carefully enough? Is this the bill coming due for some failure I can't even identify? You haven't failed, but I know that doesn't land yet. So let me try something else. There's an old tree. You've probably seen one. Past the point of giving shade, past the point of bearing fruit. The kind of tree a child wouldn't bother climbing. And if you were walking past it, you might not even really see it. You'd see the younger trees, the ones doing visible things. But that old tree's roots go down 30, 40 feet. They're threaded through the soil in ways that hold the ground together. They're part of an underground network. Scientists actually call it that, a network, where trees share nutrients, where the old ones feed the young ones through their root systems long after anyone looking from above would think they had anything left to give. The tree doesn't know it's doing this. It's just still here, still connected, still part of something. I think about that when I think about what it means to be older and slower and less visibly useful. The roots don't stop mattering because you can't see them. The connection doesn't stop being real because it changed form. But here's what I really want to say. And this is the part that took me the longest to understand. Needing help is not the same as having failed. We treat dependence like a moral failing. Like if you need someone to bring you a meal or help you get dressed or drive you somewhere, you have somehow lost, you've been subtracted. But think about every person you've ever loved at their most vulnerable. Think about them sick or scared or falling apart at the seams. And ask yourself if their need made you love them less, or if it made you feel for just a moment like you were allowed to love them more completely, like the walls came down, like you finally got to just be there for them without any performance required. You gave that to people your whole life. You gave that. You are allowed to receive it too. So here's where I want to shift something, not fix it. I'm not going to insult you with a list of steps, but shift it just slightly, because sometimes that's all you need for the weight to become something you can actually carry. The question that's been keeping you up isn't really who will take care of me when I can't take care of myself. That's the surface question. The one underneath it, the one with teeth, is this: am I living in a way right now that means something to me? Because the fear of the nursing home, at its core, is a fear about the ending of a story. And we only panic about endings when we're not sure the middle was enough. When we lie awake at 3 a.m., replaying a future we can't control, it's often because we're avoiding a present we can still do something about. Not in a productivity way, not in a you better hustle before it's too late way. I mean something quieter than that. Is there someone you've been meaning to call? Not to ask for anything, not to be useful to them, just to say, I'm thinking about you, I love you, I'm glad you exist? Is there something you've been putting off, living until some future version of your life that has more time, more money, more certainty? Is there a version of yourself you've been waiting to become before you let yourself actually rest inside your own life? The antidote to the fear of an empty future is not planning a better future. It's being more fully inside the present one. And there's something practical here. Genuinely practical, not self-help practical. If this fear lives in you, have the conversation, the real one. Not the logistics conversation about wills and documents and who gets the house, though those matter too. The other one. The one where you sit down with the people you love and you say out loud, I'm scared of being alone at the end. I'm scared of being a burden. I'm scared of disappearing. That conversation will feel impossible until you start it. And then something strange happens. The other person exhales because they've been scared too. Because they didn't know how to bring it up either. Because the fear of losing you has been sitting in them just as quietly as your fear of being lost has been sitting in you. You don't have to have answers. You just have to stop pretending the question isn't there. And maybe you start to let go of the idea that the shape of your ending determines the meaning of your life. The nursing home, if it comes, will be a place, just a place. The people who love you will still love you inside it. The roots you've grown over a lifetime don't stop holding just because the tree is standing somewhere new. You are not the room you live in. You are not your independence. You are not your usefulness. You are the accumulation of every moment you chose to show up for someone else, for yourself, for the terrifying and beautiful and exhausting project of being alive. That doesn't get checked into a facility. That doesn't get left in a hallway that smells like antiseptic. That goes with you. Everywhere. Always. You are allowed to be scared of what's coming. And you are allowed, fully, completely allowed, to need people, to lean, to receive, to let the love you spent a lifetime giving finally find its way back to you in whatever form it takes. That's not weakness. That's just finally letting yourself be human. So let's go back to that hallway. The two bright lights. The floor that's too clean. The paper bag in your hands. The door with a name on it. You go in, you sit down. And maybe for the first time, you're not just visiting someone you love. You're also sitting with yourself, with the part of you that is afraid and tired and trying so hard to hold everything together without letting anyone see how heavy it is. And maybe you let that part of you rest for a minute, right there, in that room that smells like antiseptic and something floral. Maybe you stop performing okayness just long enough to feel what's actually there. Because here's what I know. The people who end up in those rooms, the ones who wait by windows, who watch afternoon light move across floors, they are not people whose lives didn't matter. They are people who loved, who worked, who showed up day after day for decades in ways that nobody gave them a trophy for. They are people with roots so deep you can't see them from the outside. And so are you. Whatever ending comes, and none of us get to choose it, you are not the ending. You are everything that came before it. Go call someone you love. Not tomorrow. Tonight.
Oh.
Đây, cảm ơn. Đây, cái đi. Lòng.